So if we'd come here about 250 years ago, as Tim says, this would have been open land as far as the eye can see, going north, going south, going east, it would have been marsh wilderness, and then behind us west would have been Homerton village. And the first development that now defines the eastern edge of the park is the Lee Valley Cut, which was built at the start of the Industrial Revolution in 1769. After that, Homerton village remained as a kind of rural village. It had surrounded by market gardens and watercress beds, because this is all very wet. It's a marshy area here with streams and small holdings. And it remained that way until towards the end of the Victorian times, when the London urban sprawl started creeping out eastwards. That is the boundary marker for the London County Council. When the London County Council was created, this was the edge of London. The London County Council was created out of Middlesex County. I think it was 1898, the Act of Parliament was. And they put a ring of these iron markers all the way around London to mark the edge of what was then London. Thousands of them. Most of them have disappeared now or been buried, but there's a few remaining. There's another one up on Millfields Park. As I said, originally there was a whole ring of them. So from this point, this was the edge of London. From this point on at the time, the only way was Essex, really, going that way. In the First World War, there was an armaments factory that was built down there, which made the shells and the projectiles for use in the First World War. And then after the First World War, they built the Kingsmead estate, which now separates Mabley Green from Daubeney Fields. And that was built to house people who were being relocated from slum clearances in Bethnal Green. After the Second World War, they established the Kingsmead Primary School. It was an infant school originally, and a primary school, and they put in there was an old paddling pool originally that they put in there. And then in the Adventure Playground was first established in 1972, so it's its 50th anniversary this year. A couple of years ago, it got a Playground of the Year award. In 1974, there was an arts group, outdoor arts group, established by a guy called Martin Goodrich. He was one of the establishers, who was actually the grandson of the first Labour MP, Henry Goodrich, who became Labour MP for Hackney after the Second World War in the Attlee landslide. It's strange to think that before then, Hackney was a Conservative constituency. And ever since then, it has been strongly Labour. But anyway, so Martin Goodrich and some fellow collaborators set up the Hackney Marsh Festival here on Daubeney Fields. And they engaged the community around here, pubs and churches and schools, and the Chatsworth Road Market, which is just up there, to create a carnival procession that went through the streets and through the estates and ended up with a fun fair and a festival here on Daubeney Fields. It became quite a big fun fair. At its heyday, it was attracting 15,000 people, and they had all kinds of music acts, everything from punk and ska and reggae to gospel and jazz, and the Hackney Philharmonic Orchestra. And the festival itself went on for over 20 years here. As a result of that, Hackney Council and the connections that they'd formed in the community, Hackney Council engaged Freeform Arts to work with the community around here to regenerate the area. The Kingsmead estate and the Clapton Park estate over there had become notorious for deprivation in the country. There was a couple of really horrific murders on the estate of children. There was vandalism, and the whole area was in a complete a complete mess basically. So they engaged Freeform Arts to engage the community in its own regeneration. As a result of that, that then inspired a lot of local authorities around the country to use art and community art as a planning tool for urban regeneration. And Freeform Arts went on from here to become one of the biggest outdoor arts companies in the country, if not in Europe. By the early part of, in the noughties, they were employing over like 70 different artists. They had a turnover of £1 million, and they were working on regeneration projects all around the UK. But back to the park. So the next development after that was in 1986. So before the GLC was abolished by the Thatcher government, as you say, they funneled some money into the Kingsmead Tenants Residents Association. The paddling pool had become neglected. The kind of fashion for paddling pools had gone by then. But what was really big at the time was BMX biking, particularly after E.T., if anybody remembers that. So they replaced the paddling pool with a BMX park here. There wasn't a lot of investment after that. So for 20, 30 years after that, there was no real investment in the park until 2014. There was a community orchard, which we can walk past. That was planted thanks to Hackney Marsh User Group and the Tree Musketeers, with children from Kingsmead Primary School, and there's a youth club around the corner as well, Concord Youth Centre, and they planted 24 rare and old fruit trees just over there, and that's still going. But in terms of investment, there was no real investment in it. In 2013, 14, I think it was, I decided something needed to be done about it because the whole park was really dilapidated. So set up Daubeney Fields Forever to improve the facilities for residents around here, but also the other thing that had happened, a biodiversity action plan had been developed for the park in 2012, and it's not a metropolitan site of importance for nature conservation, but it is a borough site of importance for nature conservation because of its shrubs and habitats around here. The idea of Daubeney Fields Forever was to improve the facilities for people and but also manage the natural environment as well for the park. I say this was 2014, so we had another Conservative government who were implementing austerity. So a lot, there have been swinging cuts to local authority budgets on parks, which you all know well about. So in order to make the improvements that we wanted to make, we then had to fundraise money in order to do them. And we identified 3 things that needed to be done, or to be more precise, we talked to park users and they identified the 3 big things that needed to be done. The first of which was to regenerate this early years playground here, which in the 1970s, it was a 1970s playground, so it was all kind of like hard knee grazing concrete and stuff, and all that kind of stuff. It's where my kids used to play when I first moved around here. So we took 5 years to raise £150,000 to transform that into a natural play area for the kids. So that was finished about a couple of years ago. You can see with the fort and the logs and the sand pit and all the rest of it. So it's a much more kind of naturalistic play area. We did that. We were going to do the skate park, but a group of very keen skaters came along called Hackney Bumps and did it themselves. So they put a lot of voluntary effort and they resurfaced the whole thing and they put in those things there to such an extent that this is now a really, really trendy skate park if you're into skating. People come from all over the UK now to skate in this park. Oh, wow. So this is kind of like an iconic retro skate park. You don't get many of these retro skate parks, and it's called the Bumps for kind of obvious reasons. The third big project that we're still in the process of doing is to rework the entrances. Another thing that we've been doing in the streets around the park over recent years, 4 or 5 years, is we've been working with Friends of the Earth to green up the streets around the park, working with the residents to make their streets greener. So what we've been doing with the entrances is to start if you like, to create a park with no borders, so it bleeds out into the street. So we've taken away the railings there, these kind of hard borders, and are replacing them with boulders and logs and naturalistic elements. So we kind of bring in, this is taking the park out into the streets, but bringing people into the park at the same time. And that is the current project that we're working on. A couple of years ago, we were gifted 60 Sakura Cherry Trees. Those ones have sadly been vandalised, so they're not very big, but they're going back again. And we were gifted them by the Japan British Society, who were giving some of these to a number of communities around the UK as a mark of friendship between Japan and Britain, the two countries. Sakura cherry trees are the cherry trees that blossom, famous in Japan for their blossom in spring.